There's always entertainment, music, sport and fun. National Radio 2 for everyone.
This is the British Broadcasting Corporation. We present On the Air, a nostalgia quiz program covering over 60 years of radio history. The program is compiled and introduced by David Ryder.
Hello. Well, coming up in the next half hour, we have a few more tasty titbits thawed out after having been preserved in the sound archives, the BBC equivalent of a chest freezer. And talking of chests, Marilyn Monroe was once asked by a journalist, "Didn't you have anything on?" To which she replied, "I had the radio on." Well, we nearly all have the radio on at some time or other during the day, and all our panellists are likely to tickle your tweeter at some time or another. Radio seems to have been going longer than I thought, because in 1685, John Dryden wrote, "Happy the man and happy he alone who can call today his own." Well, our first contestant did indeed once call today, or at least 50% of it, his own. And now he has another quote to quote on quote-unquote. Between the inverted commas is Nigel Rees. Samuel Johnson, the famous lexicographer, was followed round by his own personal memory bank, James Boswell, who faithfully recorded this remark: "Much may be made of a Scotchman if he be caught young." So it seems that Radio 2 were right to develop the talents of youthful Ken Bruce. If he is to enjoy leisure and privacy, marry, buy books, travel, and entertain his friends, a writer needs upwards of £5 a day net, said Cyril Connolly. Well, this is excellent news, as it means that we can considerably reduce the fee that we were going to pay to Barry Took. Television, said the American comedian Fred Allen, is a device which allows people who have nothing to do to watch people who can't do anything. And I suppose that can also be applied in part to radio, but our fourth guest must plead not guilty, because he can do plenty. A man for all programs is Michael Aspel. Now, the first round, giving my penchant for smart titles, is called On the Right Track. And this round, now about to depart, centres on railways, a variety of recordings from the archives covering this topic. Contestants, of course, must try to avoid points failures during this round. And chairman must try to avoid joke failures. Now, Nigel, you get the first one. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me, please, where we are?
Mrs. Luke is retiring from her part-time job in the station buffet.
Retiring? Why?
She's 98, Applewhite. And her aim with the spout of her teapot is not what it used to be. The vicar is still recovering from his injuries.
Didn't he put a bread poultice on it?
It is difficult to apply a bread poultice to the spot where the tea hit him.
Yes.
Yes?
Well, Arthur Lowe was in there somewhere, wasn't he?
Give him a point for
Yes, Arthur Lowe. And is this Dad's Army?
No, it is not Dad's Army. No, we are somewhere else in Warmington-on-Sea. Any offers? No. We're back in 1972, and there's a Radio 2 comedy series called Parsley Sidings, set in a railway station, with Arthur Lowe, as you correctly identified, Andy in Lavender. Written, incidentally, by Jim Eldridge, who has written the excellent series King Street Junior, which has been on Radio 4 recently. Okay, Ken, I'd like to know if you can tell me which decade this extract refers to.
A train may be dispatched to any point and placed entirely at the disposal of the person or persons demanding the convenience. They, of course, defraying the extraordinary charge, which is necessarily a heavy one. The express train takes second rank as a class of conveyance. The speed at which this train goes is very great, 30, 40, and sometimes 50 miles an hour being attained. To many persons, the excessive vibration felt when travelling by express is most disagreeable, and it is not to be wondered at that the delicate and ailing who have been subjected to such a process should feel shaky for some days afterwards.
I had exactly the same experience coming from Haywards Heath earlier today.
I was going to say, it sounds like the 1980s to me.
But it's not. Would you like to take a stab at when you think it might have been
Well, it
written?
does sound so long ago. When did Stevenson do his rocket?
It's a little
Somewhere.
post-rocket, but not very much.
Well, let's say the 1880s.
No. I can offer it to other contestants.
Well, I'll have a go for the 1840s.
Wrong.
I was going to say 1836.
No.
Oh.
Nigel, I'll give you a go.
There used to be a record which they used to play on children's favourites where a man used to make railway noises. He used to say, and as we go along the track, we go biddly bomb, biddly bomb, biddly bomb. You know that one?
That's
it's
very
not
good.
that.
No.
The 1930s, I'll say.
No. You're most of you are in the right century with the 19th century. It was in the 1860s. That was from a programme based on a publication called The Railway Traveller's Handybook, which was published in 1862.
And it was Reginald Gardner who did the record of Fiddly Lum, Fiddly Dee,
Oh,
Fiddly
thank
Dee.
you, Michael.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Barry, you last time you were on, you seemed to get awfully tough questions. And here's another one. What occasion is being spoken of here?
I've driven her ever since she came new from the shops in March that year. I looked upon her as almost my own property. With my lovely blue streamlined engine Mallard, she was number 4468, we drew away from Grantham. We had besides the train a dynameter car, containing a speed recorder and other instruments. I accelerated up the bank to Stoke Summit and past Stoke Box at 85. Once over the top, I gave Mallard her head, and she just jumped to it like a live thing.
In fact, he gave you the name of the locomotive.
Well, the Mallard,
Yes.
he said.
How
Well,
old was
was
the
it the
locomotive?
last run of the
No.
steam locomotive on British Rail?
No. Nigel.
I think it was when the Mallard won the world steam record for a locomotive.
Correct. Do you happen to know the speed?
Oh, 216, 316?
No. It was 126 and a half
I knew 6
miles
came
an hour.
into it, yes. And I saw the Mallard last year with steam coming out of it at Banbury Station. They'd let it out for
That's
a
right,
ride.
it has
A
been
beautiful engine.
installed.
Beautiful engine.
And that record run was done on July the 3rd, 1938. And the note in the Guinness Book of Records said, the engine suffered some damage. I bet it did. Now then, Michael, who is the reader in this recording?
Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and never came out again. The engine's name was Henry. His driver and fireman argued with him, but he would not move. The rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes, he said. The guard blew his whistle till he had no more breath and waved his flags till his arms ached, but Henry still stayed in the tunnel and blew steam at him. I'm not going to spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes for you, he said rudely.
Well, that's one of young Thomas's friends, isn't it? Young Johnny Gielgud.
Yes.
Was the question, the reader?
Mark.
Yes. The Reverend Audrey.
The Reverend Audrey is right. Give him another mark for the Reverend Audrey. Very perspicacious. The Reverend Wilbert Audrey. Now, I've been looking through the Radio Times, old editions of the Radio Times, and I've culled from the pages of the House magazine some descriptions of people and programs. So I'd like to see if you can identify them from the descriptions which Richard will read for us. So, Nigel, see if you can exercise your detective abilities, please, on this quote.
He is looking forward to presenting Housewife's Choice this week. It will give me a chance to prove that I haven't really got a sinister voice, he told us. How is the mystery voice achieved? Simply by talking very quietly, very close to the microphone, he said. But he's not only a voice, he is an accomplished actor, a talented songwriter, and a solo pianist who is much in demand as an accompanist.
Yes. When I heard the word sinister voice, I began thinking in a completely wrong direction about Valentine Dial and all the rest of it. But it wasn't him. It was a man who used to do this thing with the mystery voice in this very studio where we are now, the Paris studio in Lower Regent Street. And he was secreted round the back in what is still called the narrator's suite, which is a telephone box where we all have pre-broadcast crisps and a glass of water.
Did you? I didn't get any crisps.
And he was called Norman Hackforth.
Yes, that's right, he was. Well, here's a sample of his inimitable style.
This one is Animal.
And this one is a plain clothes man. A plain clothes man.
Ken, see if you can work out which program is being referred to here.
Even now, in its 6th successful year, the program surprisingly continues to offend. Producer Glyn Dearman finds himself receiving letters complaining of irresponsibility and depravity, and personal invitations to himself to rot in hell. Whereas the Dales listeners were mainly middle-aged women, Dearman pictures his housewives listening over the clash of coffee mugs rather than the tinkle of teacups.
Took me a moment or two. The depravity really sent me off in the wrong direction, and the Dales gave it to me. It was this rather twee soap that Radio 2, I think, ran for some years. It was called Waggoner's Walk, set in Hampstead. Yes. But I must say, I listened to it quite a lot, and never once did I hear any sign of depravity. No. Much to my chagrin, I'm afraid.
Well,
but you knew it was going on in Hampstead.
Somewhere around about.
Yes, the series began in June 1969, and here is an irresponsible and depraved scene from the series.
Now, as I understand it, from what you've said, 2 of your dearest friends have been spirited away from your bed sitting room, and you believe them to have been kidnapped?
Briefly, yes, that's right.
Ah. What have the police had to say?
Try the RSPCA.
Could you possibly describe your friends, Miss Park?
Of course. One's blue, t'other's yellow.
Caged by any chance?
Only when the window's open.
But birds nonetheless.
Budgerigars.
A bonus question, who was playing Miss Park in that scene?
Oh, Irene Handel, I would say.
Yes, a bonus mark for Michael, that's right.
She was a very eccentric lady,
Ah.
Irene Handel.
Yes.
I had the pleasure of writing for her in a series called We're in Business. And it was also had Harry Worth and Peter Jones and Dick Emery in it. And she said to Marty Garvin and I, one day, she said, "You don't believe in the Bible, do you?" And we thought, my goodness, we put something irreligious in it. We said, "Why, what's the matter, Miss Handel?" She said, "Well, in the Bible, it says man and woman was created equal, and you've given Harry Worth more lines than what you've given me." In this very studio, I might say.
Well, Barry, your quote also concerns a programme, but a musical one.
Every Saturday, 300 guests at the BBC gather for 3/4 of an hour of old-time dancing, with an interlude of ballads sung by a well-known singer. This programme, which has been running for 2 years, has been largely responsible for a great revival of old-time dances all over the country.
And that was written in 1945.
I have the faintest idea what that was.
Any offers from the other
Those were the days.
They certainly were.
Yes. It's been a bit of an odd idea, because one was supposed to visualize all these people dolled up in evening dress, and I suppose they were, but all you could hear was the occasional swish of a ball gown.
That's right. They did it in this very studio.
Did they take the carpet up? Or?
Well, no, they put the orchestra at the back of the stage, and the dancers would dance at the front of the stage. Occasionally probably falling off the edge.
It was in the 1930s. I mean, they had sort of variety acts, like tap dancers, and although it was radio, they tapped away. Shameless. I think they did think of doing ballet, but I don't think it's...
What was that program where... it was called Moon River, I think. Anybody remember Moon River? Where it started off with somebody saying, "Moon River," and somebody with a bucket of water going, whoosh. And then an organ would go, and one day the organist didn't turn up. And honestly, I heard this, and you heard someone saying, "Moon River." Moon River. Went on and on. Then you heard footsteps going, and then the lid of the organ going, "Come on." It's hilarious.
Oh, that's lovely. Hi, Michael, here is your quote, printed in 1962.
Eamon Andrews' soothing voice may disguise 1,000 crises, and producer Angus Mackay's quick brain may avert another 1,000, but crises there will certainly be. Mackay has learned to live with them because he knows that it is its very spontaneity, its immediacy, that makes the programme the undoubted attraction that it is.
It's still being broadcast.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. 5 o'clock, Radio 2.
Ah, then it's sports. What is it called? I can't remember.
Help him out.
The result.
Yes. Sports report.
Yes.
That's what it is. Sports report. Forgive me.
Took some time giving birth to that, for heavens. Well, we just heard a sample of the signature tune, but I think we ought to hear it properly. So here is the programme's familiar signature tune. Tune called Out of the Blue. As Ken Bruce is on the panel, I thought a round of Welsh broadcasters would go down well.
Perfect.
And so we begin again with Nigel. Can you put a name to this sports commentator?
Well, no doubt about it that the next 11 minutes should produce some great rugby football. Territorially, once again, this half has been Wales's. They've been down in Scots territory for most of this half, and 29 minutes have gone already. But Scotland have retaliated now, and they are, in fact, the team that have thrown it about behind the forwards. We've seen it going along the Scots line, and a beautiful kick there from Chisholm nearly produced a try, with Hinshelwood again scorching along on the right.
Cricket commentator, eh?
Sounds like it.
Yes. I think he had glasses.
Yes,
he had
does wear
glasses. And slightly crinkly hair, as I recall.
That's
He probably
right.
still does, as far as I know. Would it be Alan Williams?
It would be Alan Williams.
Thank
2 marks.
goodness for that. Well done, Alan Williams. I think you're wonderful.
Broadcasting from Murrayfield in 1967. You'll like
That's
the
in
score
Wales. That's in Wales, isn't it?
You'll like the scoreline, Ken. It was Scotland 11, Wales 5.
Oh, a convincing victory once again for Scotland. A whole 6 points.
Don't be so prejudiced. Now then, even a Scotsman shouldn't find this one too difficult.
Names in Wales, in my theory anyhow, were a form of choral music. You had to chant them to each other whenever you met. A gentleman prided himself on his descent. And when he met another gentleman, they almost sang a duet of names. Each ancestor came into the song, all linked with ap, meaning the son of. Who are you, they might inquire, as you pulled up at the castle portcullis. And proudly you would answer, I am Iorwerth ap Rees, ap Owain, ap Tudor, ap Llywelyn, ap Ieuan, ap Pryderi, ap Rhys, ap Iologor. By which time, of course, the waiting Englishman had run out of patience, or his lawyer had run out of parchment.
I'm glad I got this one. Everybody's been waiting for this one, but I've got him. I used to think he was German, actually, when I heard his name on the radio first. Winfried von Thomas.
Yes, it is Winfried, sadly no longer with us, so 2 marks for that. In his autobiography, Trust Talk, he recounts some wonderful stories about an outside broadcast engineer who he only identifies in the book as R.H., who was an expert at malapropisms. And these are lovely, like, you can't find a needle if you haven't got a haystack. And he's butted his bed, he must lie in it. Don't worry, he's getting on like a horse on fire. But the masterpiece was his reply to a distinguished royal lady who was trying to persuade him to arrange a further rehearsal. What can I say to persuade you, she pleaded. Hey, ma'am, you don't have to persuade me. You're talking to the perverted. Barry, this recording is somewhat older. Oh, you always get the good ones, don't you? Dating back to 1934.
That seclusion has given me an increasing sense of detachment from party strife. As an old parliamentarian, I'm still naturally interested in watching the arena. But I find that I can get much less excited about the struggle of political parties in the House of Commons than I do, for instance, over an international rugby match.
Yes. Well, if it isn't Lloyd George, I wonder who it is.
It is Lloyd George.
It is Lloyd George, yes. I thought it possibly might be.
Speaking on the national programme on March the 20th, 1934, a talk entitled Whither Britain. Michael.
Talking of that, did you know that Monty Python's Flying Circus was at one stage called Whither Canada?
No, I didn't know
It didn't amuse anybody then. That's why they called it Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Just thinking about that name of the national programme, didn't they have nice names for the networks in those days? I remember one of my former colleagues on the announcing staff in Scotland was reputed to have introduced a recital of Scottish dance music gramophone records on the Foam and Horses service.
Oh, that's nice. I hadn't heard that before. Finally, Michael, for you, a Welsh lady.
I went to South America, to the delta of the Orinoco, to make Murphy's War. We went to a place where people don't go. I mean, no white person goes down there. We made a wonderful trip to the source of the Orinoco and stayed with some Indian tribes and had a very, very exciting time. And actually, I was wondering about the book I was going to take, which we'll talk about later. And I did a very stupid thing on that. I took all of Proust with me because I thought, well, what am I going to do in the jungle for all these months? And Philippe Noiret turned up with all of Proust in French. He thought the same thing.
That's a girl who was known as the girl with the golden voice. She was an announcer for a while down in Wales. Sian Phillips.
That's right, too much.
Enchanting woman. I thought it was going to be Cliff Morgan at first. He was one of my finest people in the world. And there's a lovely romantic story about Cliff when he was playing rugby and he went to Ireland and played a match and he was slumped over a table at the end of the day and had a very good time celebrating a win. And this woman walked in and he looked up and said, "Oh, geez, what a bird." And one thing led to her mother. They were married within the hour. And that was Nuala. The lady became his wife. Very romantic story.
Now, the next round is called Funny Ladies. Here are recordings culled from the archives of 4 comedians. Well, actually it's 5, because one extract features a double act. Nigel, here is a specialist in the difficult art of the monologue.
What have you got under your jersey? That's not the place for hamsters, Sidney. Put him back in his box at once. No, he's not lonely in there. He's far happier in his box than he is suffocating under your jersey. Sidney, you know he didn't say that. Hamsters don't talk. That's not true, Sidney. You know he didn't say he'd rather be under your jersey with you than in his horrid old box. You're making it up, you know. You must... Yes, you are making it up. Now, go back at once. Edgar, you're a king, aren't you? Well, get your crown and put it on. All right, swap it with James, then. He likes a big crown, don't you, James? That's better. George? Shepherds never do that.
Yes, the catchphrase that I remember is "George, don't do that." But yes, that is from the nursery school sketch I imagined by a very wonderful monologuiste, Mrs. Joyce Grenfell.
That's right.
Wonderful lady, yes.
Who auditioned for the BBC as long ago as 1936, which was quite a surprise. I didn't realise that she'd been in the business quite that long.
Did she ever tell you what it was that George was doing?
I think it was just too disgusting to mention.
Yes. Well, in that case, we better move on to the next question and give this one to Ken Bruce. And here is a lady noted for her comedy characterizations.
One way and another, I'm determined to land Perce this year. Oh, he's lovely, his Perce. You know, he rides a motorbike now. Dressed in leather from head to foot. If he comes off his bike, we don't give him first aid, we just have him soled and healed. I'm what you might call persevering for Perce. I'm like grooming myself to be a beautiful bride. Here, I've been to elocution lessons as well, you know. Oh, I learned some lovely things. We learned to say, Peter Piper picked a pick and pickled pipper. Peter Piper picked a pick and I learned to say that was a posh. What a waste. How often does that sentence crop up in conversation?
Well, wasn't the character called Maureen or something like that? Wasn't it? Yes. Beryl Reid, of course.
That's right.
Was that in Educating Archie, by any chance? Was that in Educating Archie?
No, that was, in fact, from a show called London Lights.
Oh. She was Archie's chum for a while, wasn't she?
That's right, but I think she was Monica when she was in Educating Archie,
yes.
rather than Marlene. Right. Yeah. She actually started a long time ago. She probably wouldn't like to be reminded, but back in 1938, she was appearing and, well, applying to the BBC to try and get on. And a memo about her, wonderful things, BBC memos, said, "I consider Beryl Reid one of the cleverest impersonators up here." That's North Region, Manchester. "Some of her impersonations are extremely good, and she has an enormous repertoire. Last time she broadcast for me, she did Elizabeth Bergner, Ethel Revenell, Jane Carr, and Donald Duck." Barry, here's someone who could easily have appeared in the last round.
I thought have you been waiting long? Yes, indeed, she said. I've been waiting here 2 hours now, waiting for the shop to open. She had a little dog on a lead. Yes. Yes. Nice little thing, you know. It was getting restless. I said to her, oh dear, I said to her, I said, well, I don't know, I said. That's a lovely little Welsh corgi you got by there, isn't it? Yeah, she said it was a greyhound when I started off.
Broadcasting in Welsh Rarebit in 1950.
Yes, Grace Jones. Or
Yes?
Gladys Morgan.
That's right.
Wonderful comedian, lovely Welsh lady, and very, very funny, I thought.
Marvellous comedian. I was actually surprised to find that in the mid-50s she wasn't living in Abertillery, or Aberystwyth, but in Leeds, which is a bit of a letdown, really. But
it's easier to spell.
A letter here written by her agent in 1952, which shows you one of the old problems which still besiege the BBC now. At that time, she was earning between £200 and £250 a week in variety, and her agent was trying to get her BBC fee for appearances up to 25 guineas.
I'm not getting that tonight.
Between us we are.
Yes.
Do you know how much I was paid for my first radio broadcast?
Tell me.
Which was 20 years ago today, almost. We just heard Sergeant Pepper coming out. It was in the summer of '67, and I gave a talk on Woman's Hour live from Manchester on the subject of yogurt, which is quite new in those days, and I got paid 6 guineas. It's interesting to see how fees are broadly the same.
Very broadly. Michael?
Oh, yes.
Can you put a name to these two, or preferably 2 names? They're at the swimming pool, by the way.
Yeah, did Mum make you have a bath before you came? Yeah, she always does. I think it's soppy, don't you? Anyone would think we was coming to a place where there wasn't no water. Yes. I hope it ain't cold, don't you? Yes, so do I. Oh, Grace! What? Look, you've got a great big hole in the bottom part of your costume. Have I? Oh, Grace, you'll have to keep swimming on your back all the time.
Yes, I always have to be careful not to confuse these with Jack Warner's sisters. Of course, they were... Yes, but they are not. This is Ethel Revel and Gracie West?
Yes, 2 marks.
Yes, happy
Right. Yes, known as the Cockney Kids, they first broadcast in Music Hall back in 1934, and there's a lovely little poem that goes with them. Long and short, short and long, but if names are best, the long one's Ethel Revenel and the short one's Gracie West. A lovely act. Now then, while I see if the score sheet can be adjusted to make the right person win, here's another of radio's whoopsies. It's a short one. It's a BBC newsman in a state of confusion.
Angus McDermott, BBC, at the... Sorry, skip the payoff. Don't know where I am.
The hustle and bustle of a newsman's life. Well, now, we have a score, and the winner this week is Michael Aspel. What? Actually, the prize which you have won, I think, is a little superfluous in your case, Michael, but we're giving you, following in Marlene's footsteps, a course of elocution lessons. The course tutor will be Derek Jameson.
Morning.
Well, we shall be back at the same time next week with some more willing, ha-ha contestants and another astonishingly knowledgeable audience who've been of tremendous value this evening. And this is where On the Air goes off the air. Goodbye.
That was On the Air, a radio nostalgia quiz devised and chaired by David Ryder. Taking part were Nigel Rees, Ken Bruce, Barry Took, and Michael Aspel. The announcer was me, Richard Clegg, and the programme, which was recorded, was produced by Richard Edis.